So let's say we just did the retail inventory method and we came up with this as our ending inventory balance. Then we dug in a little bit more. And we looked at the stuff that we didn't sell. Just didn't sell. And it's been on the shelf for a year. Why is it on the shelf for a year? Nobody wants it. So I may be faced with dropping the price. Maybe faced with dropping the price because nobody wants it. And maybe I've been able to buy, and if I wanted to go out and buy that now, nobody wants to sell it to me, so I can mark it up, etc. So when I talk to the people who are selling me this stuff, I find that if I wanted to buy this now, I could buy it at whatever that value is, and we'll call this, that's the current market. That's the current market. That's how much it's going to cost me to buy it. So we're going to come up with, and this is, we're trying to do valuation in retail, using retail inventory method. We now have a few things. We've got net realizable value, something that we've already talked about, which is my sales price minus my selling costs. And now we have a new one called the market or the replacement cost, aka the market. And this is simply the costs currently to acquire the inventory or the cost currently to create the inventory. So these are the current costs to acquire or construct the inventory. So I want to kind of separate these things out. So I want my net realizable value. I want to compare the net realizable value, to which is my sales price minus selling cost, to my replacement cost. And then I also want to look at another variable called net realizable value less normal profit. Okay. And I've got these stacked in this way for a reason. So I'm looking at replacement cost and seeing where it lies in this scope here. So now, if the replacement cost lies somewhere between net realizable value and net realizable value less a normal profit, so if this is between, the two, then we're going to use replacement cost and then compare replacement cost against the cost that I assigned when I did the retail inventory method. Take the sales price times whatever the percentage is. That's what that item is currently sitting on the books. And if that replacement cost is now less than what I had it on the books here for, I'm going to write it down. But what happens if the replacement cost is higher than the net realizable value? What if it's up here? Do I write it down to replacement cost? No. You write it down to net realizable value. You write it down to net realizable value. Assuming that your net realizable value has the new sales price in it, right? This is all assuming we are using the new sales price. The new sales price. That's what this net realizable value has to think about. And if this replacement cost falls below net realizable value versus the normal profit, we're not going to use replacement cost. We're going to use net realizable value less than normal profit. We're going to use that number. We're not going to write it all the way down to replacement cost. So this one's a little trickier than just writing it down to net realizable value, but it's something that we have to be aware of when we're thinking about the valuation of retail inventory. There's a little bit more judgment. So we've got to be comfortable with this new sales price. We're going to be comfortable with this, what we think normal profit would be. We're going to make sure we're comfortable with selling costs, current selling costs. Are we comfortable with the replacement? There's a lot of judgment involved in the data that you gather. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that whatever replacement cost, if it's below this, don't go below, just use this number here. And write your inventory down from that. If replacement cost is above, then you have to write it down to net realizable value. So there's, again, just giving you give you the general rule, which is lower of cost and net realizable value. And then when you have something like this, there may be more analysis that's associated with it.